Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 762. April the 25th, 2019, Thursday. Thank you so much for tuning in. Alrighty, let's go ahead and get to it. Let's see here. Let's start first with this Trump tweet today. There's a lot going on in this tweet. So let's go ahead and talk about that. Here is the tweet from Trump that he sent out on Wednesday. Quote, former CIA analyst Larry Johnson accuses the United Kingdom intelligence of helping the Obama administration, spy on the 2016 Trump presidential campaign. And then he leaves the OANN, America News Network, One America News Network. Wow! Exclamation point. It's now just a question of time before the truth comes out. And when it does, it will be a beauty. Classic Trump. Let me do that one more time. Former CIA analyst Larry Johnson accuses the United Kingdom intelligence of helping the Obama administration spy on the 2016 Trump presidential campaign. At One American News. Wow. And then he leaves the link. Now, it's now just a question of time before the truth comes out. And when it does, it will be a beauty. What's he talking about? Okay, for those of you who did not see this interview on One America News Network, they're interviewing Larry Johnson. Many of you are familiar with him. He's part of I think he's one of the VIPs, the Veteran Intelligence Professionals for Truth. Sanity, I think it's for Sanity. Veteran Intelligence Professionals for Sanity, I think is the acronym. So Larry Johnson is on there, and he's talking about the fact that... and he was a former CIA analyst, and he dealt with communications and things like that. And he said what they're talking about here is that the British government, on behalf of the Obama administration, using the GCHQ, General Communications Headquarters, used the GCHQ, British GCHQ, which is like the American version of the NSA, to spy on Trump. And of course, we believe the first time that this was done was when they were spying on Trump Tower right after Trump announced he was running for president and set up operations at Trump Tower. And it's believed that right after he began putting his team together at Trump Tower, that GCHQ began spying on Trump. There is some question as to whether or not GCHQ and the British government started doing this on their own or whether they were prompted by the Obama administration. That's not 100% clear at this point, or whether it was a combination of both. Because the British government did have real fears about Trump, particularly his positions on NATO, because he talked about, hey, fuck NATO, we can get rid of NATO. We don't need NATO. You know, they don't pay their fair share. And so if you remember during the presidential campaign, Trump even was talking at some point about, they don't have a mission anymore. Their original mission was to stop the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union's gone. What are they doing now? They're not really addressing terrorism. They're not paying their fair share. So he had all these criticisms of the United Nations, NATO, the National Atlantic Treaty Organization, and he was doing this in typical Trump fashion, tweaking them. We've seen enough of Trump now to know how he does things. He likes to call people out. He goes over the top when he makes an initial observation to draw attention, and then once he draws that attention, then he backs it off, and he usually gets what he wants. So this is just classic Trump. But early on, during the 2016 primary, or right after he announced, it wasn't quite clear exactly when Trump would say these things how serious he was or what his strategy was. We now have seen enough of him that we know. So the British government was quite confused. They were also very unhappy about his position on Brexit. They were unhappy about his position on various things, dealing with foreign policy or things that they thought might affect them. So there is the real possibility that within the British establishment that they wanted to learn more about Trump, and they wanted to do that by spying on him. Now, also in the story, they talk specifically about Papadopoulos. They had gotten Papadopoulos over to London. And now once they got him in London, then, of course, they were spying on him too. And Larry Johnson suggests that they absolutely were looking at monitoring, reading, listening to the communications, both email and phone calls, of Papadopoulos when he was in London. And of course, it's not 100% proven, but we're pretty damn sure that GCHQ was spying on Trump Tower. And of course, we know that the head of GCHQ came to the U.S. 2 times in the summer of 2016, met with John Brennan. John Brennan, we can assume, we know that at some point he traveled to London as well. So it appears that there was a lot of things going on between the CIA, GCHQ, and there was a lot of spying going on by the British government. And probably all the Five Eyes intelligence agencies, which would include Australia and New Zealand. And so anyway, this is basically what the One American News piece was talking about, the British spying on Trump, and the fact that there's pretty strong evidence that that did occur. And it's been reported fairly widely now by various media organizations over the past 2 years that some sort of surveillance or spying, electronic spying, was going on by GCHQ, British government, what have you. So this is what Trump is talking about, and this is what he tweeted out. Now, what's interesting about this, to me, is that if you remember, when Trump was talking about declassifying the Carter Page FISA, the small group stuff, some of the other items he was talking about declassifying, we were told that he was contacted by at least 2 foreign governments. We can assume that was Australia and the UK, and asking him not to do it because it could create some problems. And so what have we seen happen now in the last 2 or 3 days? Well, we have seen the Australian government, on the day that the Mueller report was released, they release these documents that sort of detail the involvement of Alexander Downer and his assistant and his association with Papadopoulos and what happened there. And then they, of course, have a letter that says, here's basically what we've got on what happened there. Here's the 2 emails from, between Papadopoulos, Downer, and Downer's assistant. Here's the emails. Here's what took place, the meeting, this and that. Here's what was discussed, this and that and the other thing. So we get this from the Australian government on the day the Mueller report's released. Then, 2 days ago, we get this news that the Italian government has basically come out and stated, or let it be known, where Misfit is and where he's been, and kind of what's going on with Misfit. He's being protected or what have you. Then, of course, we get this information yesterday with the GCHQ, with the British government somehow allowing this information to rise to the surface so that it will be picked up by various reporters, and now they're all reporting on it. So now we have all 3 of the groups who would have been embarrassed, and I think the Ukrainian government might be in there as well, although I'm not sure anything would embarrass the Ukrainian government, quite honestly. They're so corrupt over there that this stuff is daily for Ukraine. It's not new to the 2016 campaign. Ukraine's a horribly corrupt country. So these types of things coming out with Ukraine is nothing new or embarrassing to them. This is just par for the course, another day in Ukraine. But for the U.S. And the UK and Australia and Italy, these would be embarrassing things if Trump were to declassify. So the fact that these 3 big players who would be embarrassed by this and who asked Trump not to declassify, all of a sudden letting out this information, releasing this information, tells me that they're trying to get ahead of something. And I think what they want to get ahead of is the fact that this stuff's going to be declassified. They realize now that the Mueller investigation is over and the coup did not work. It failed. And so now they see that William Barr is saying, oh yeah, spying went on and I am investigating it. I'm looking into it. And Trump is now saying, yeah, I'm going to declassify these documents. It's just a matter of time. We are going to do it. So they realize that it's inevitable. The governments of Australia, the UK, and Italy realize that it is inevitable that this stuff is going to come out. And I think what they're trying to do is get ahead of it so that when it does come out, they can say, okay, well, this is really not anything new. This is, we actually ourselves came out and made a statement on what happened in the 2016 election and what may have gone down here. Now, obviously, they're cloaking it and making it look like it's just nothing to it, and they're not putting it into context. They're not saying, yeah, we were part of a deep state coup. They're just saying, oh, yeah, well, there was maybe a little spying going on, maybe a little intelligence sharing going on between us and the CIA because we were concerned about, Trump's positions on this and the other thing, on NATO or whatever. So they're going to try to make it look like it was just, innocent observation of someone they were interested in because of how it might affect policy or their concerns that they had, and they're going to try to make it look like it was kind of this very not that big of a deal sort of thing. They're not going to admit that they were openly involved in a coup attempt. They're not going to admit to that or being part of a criminal conspiracy. It's just going to be, oh, well, yeah, we did a little, surveillance here and there, and yeah, Trump got caught up in it, and a couple of his aides, we were listening to them, and yeah, we shoveled some information off to the FBI or the CIA. So they're going to try to downplay it. I think that they want to get ahead of it because they know that it is going to be coming out, whether it's through Horowitz's investigation, whether it's through William Barr's investigation, or whether it's just Trump just flat out declassifying it and putting it out, or whether it's just leaked. So they know it's all coming out, and they're trying to get ahead of it, and they're trying to downplay it and make sure that because when you get ahead of something, that way when it drops and it's supposed to be this big bombshell, you can say, oh, you can go back and look in the papers a month or two ago. You'll see that we said a month or two ago that we were doing some eavesdropping, or yeah, we were working with the FBI, we traded some information, some intelligence, whatever. So they're going to kind of downplay it, make it look as like it was just routine type of information sharing that goes on between the Five Eyes or whatever. But the problem that they have is that and this is probably more a problem with the CIA and Brennan than it is with Australia or the UK or Italy. The problem is that information coming through the Five Eyes is the whole purpose of the Five Eyes is that it's an intelligence sharing. Anything that goes through one goes through all five, and it has to be corroborated. Okay, so this is not just where these spy agencies just toss stuff out there into the ether and they all pick it up and they look at it and scratch their head and wonder if it's all true. No, this information is put into the Five Eyes intelligence network is supposed to be pretty hard confirmed intelligence, not hearsay and all sorts of other things. It's supposed to be actionable intelligence that they could act on, things that they could look at. This intelligence is being put out there so that we all know what's going on, so that we can all take some active measure to deal with what we have just learned. But they're not supposed to just throw a bunch of crazy stuff, especially PP-Gate stories and all this kind of crazy stuff that was in the dossier and all that. So for that reason, this stuff would not have been able to make it into Five Eyes intelligence. And of course, we know from Devin Nunes, who's seen the IC, there's nothing there. There's nothing in the IC. There's no official intelligence in the IC that would have justified any investigation. There's nothing there. Nunes has seen it. So is Ratcliffe. There's nothing there. So here is where you have a problem, okay? Because they want to make it look like it was all on the up and up, whether it was the UK or Australia or Italy, to make it look like, well, this was just normal procedure. This is all on the up and up. But the fact that it didn't go through the normal process, it wasn't put into Five Eyes intelligence, and it made its way into the IC, even though it was not. It made its way into Obama's daily briefing, even though it never should have. It was not real intelligence. It was just crazy stuff. But it was pushed by Brennan, despite the fact that it was not actual intelligence. And this is where the problem is here. And this is where the problem is specifically for Mr. Potato Head, John Brennan. It's criminal on his behalf, but in the case of like the UK, it's just embarrassing for the most part. There's nothing criminally that we can do to them. I mean, these things happen, but it can certainly have a negative effect on FISA and on sharing this intelligence, because one thing that they always have big concerns about is that one country will use another country to do their domestic spying for them, which is what's being asserted in this piece that was done by One American News Network, and what Trump's tweeting about is that this was, hey, why don't you guys, we can't spy on these people because they're U.S. citizens, why don't you do it for us, sort of thing going on, which is not supposed to happen. And this could have a major effect on renewing the FISA application, or the FISA court, or whatever that they have to vote on every 2 or 4 years, to extend the program, keep the program going. So it could have impact there. It could have criminal liability for the perps here on this side of the pond that commissioned it. So it's not 100% clear at this point whether the UK or Australia were doing this on their own, whether they were prompted by the Obama administration, whether it was a little bit of both. Some of it was prompting, some of it was what they were doing on their own. It's not 100% clear exactly. Hopefully, once we get more declassified documents and Barr gets to the bottom of this thing and we actually get some witness testimony and we actually get people to come out and just tell the truth, we'll understand more about exactly, what exactly was going on. But the bottom line is, we know at this point that there was foreign intelligence spying on the Trump campaign. The only question is, what were their motives? Were they asked to do this by Brennan or the FBI or someone else? What was motivating them to do it? And who was behind all this? Who was aware of all this? So the details just need to be sorted out. But the underlying story here about GCHQ spying on the Trump team is not anymore in question. We've known that for a long time. It's been on my timeline for a long, long time. This is something that came out literally a week after Trump tweeted out on March the 4th, 2017, when he tweeted out, "Hey, I just learned Obama's tapping my wires." A week later, the story was out about GCHQ spying on Trump Tower. That's how quickly that came out. And it's been there for a long time. It's just been kind of hanging out there, and it's kind of faded away because of all the other things. But now it's kind of coming back, and it has a lot to do with the fact that these foreign countries now realize that this stuff is all coming out, and they're going to be at very least embarrassed. And so that's kind of what's behind it. And of course, Trump acknowledges that in his tweet. So that's what's going on there. Now, and what that means is that they know that we're getting closer to the whole truth of this coming out. It's going to happen. It's been a long time, but we're finally getting there. Believe me, we are definitely moving in the right direction. So we have a story today in the Gateway Pundit that the McCain family is going to endorse Biden. And they have been in contact with Biden. They've been working with Biden. They want to help Biden. They want to campaign for Biden. They want to assist Biden. So the McCains are behind Biden. Well, that doesn't surprise me at all. Of course, I understand the Magoos don't like Trump. I mean, Trump has succeeded massively in a huge way, where Senator Magoo failed massively in a big way. So, yeah, I can understand their butt hurt. I would be too, I guess, if I was a Magoo. But we don't care, because Trump's rocking and Magoo's 6 feet under. We just need to find out what his the full involvement, how much he knew about what he was doing in his attempt at a coup. And when all this comes out, and we're going to learn a lot more about Magoo's involvement. And it was not just passive the way that they're trying to make it look, that it was active involvement. Not passive, active. Senator Magoo was going for the takedown, knowingly, cooperating with and working with the perps, part of the coup. And that's not going to help his legacy. And nothing can help crazy Uncle Joe. Now, Papadopoulos was on that radio interview day before yesterday, and I forgot to mention one thing about that. I covered most of the things he talked about, but one thing he said that I forgot to mention in the video is he said that he is going to be testifying in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee. Well, I don't think he said Judiciary. I think he said in front of the Senate. He's going to be testifying in front of the Senate sometime in May. We can assume that's the Judiciary Committee, Lindsey Graham's committee. So I certainly hope it's an open hearing, and that Papadopoulos, that they just let him sit there and tell his story. And I can't wait for the Democrats on that committee to question Papadopoulos, because he's got his stuff down. He's been out practicing it on a lot of different media things. He's got his stuff down, and he's got his story out there. His book is out there, so he's got his stuff down. They're not going to trip him up or anything. And so it's going to be interesting to see how the Democrats try to deconstruct his testimony. He's got it down pretty well, and I don't think they're going to look very good trying to do that. And I think he's going to make them look really bad, and it's going to be fairly bombshell if he does an open hearing in the Senate. I would have to assume it's going to be reported on, and there'll be some serious bombshells, because that'll really put it really in the mainstream at that point. So let's go on now to the next story. Oh yeah, Bill Barr, Attorney General Bill Barr, is going to testify to the Senate Judiciary Committee next week. And, of course, that will be about the Mueller report. And that should be very, very entertaining as well. And I expect that they'll be asking him questions that go outside of just the Mueller report. They'll probably want to ask him some more questions about what he's doing investigative-wise into the Spygate. and I assume he'll have some comments on that. So I'll be definitely looking forward to the next Bill Barr hearing. He's fairly entertaining in a dry sort of way. Well, you're not going to believe this. The rotten Reverend Clinton, I mean, she just really cannot shut her mouth. I mean, the tweet she sent out yesterday just blew everyone's mind, and she doubles down on it with an even crazier tweet. So she tweets out today, and actually she wrote an entire op-ed in the Washington Post laying out how the Democrats should use the Mueller report to go for impeachment. And so she tweets out this tweet really with a link to her op-ed in the Washington Post, and she drops a little thing here, in a teaser in her tweet, where she says, Robert Mueller's report documents a serious crime against the American people. All Americans should demand action and accountability. And then a link to her op-ed. That's just extraordinary. Well, first of all, that's 100% wrong. Robert Mueller's report did not document a serious crime. It did not. It cleared him of the collusion. And as far as the obstruction, there's nothing there. The president is allowed to have a First Amendment right. He's allowed to comment on how he feels about the investigation. He's allowed to fire the damn special prosecutor, to fire his attorney, to fire the DOJ. He can fire anybody he wants. None of that would be criminal. None of that would be criminal. It could be politically damaging or difficult, but it's not a serious crime. But the person who did commit a lot of serious crimes, including a coup d'etat, was the Rotten Reverend. She seems to forget that. All Americans should demand action and accountability. Oh yeah, Americans are demanding action and accountability. They're demanding that Barr investigate the coup, which basically was controlled, planned, managed by you, Reverend. You, Reverend, you're the one that the American people are demanding action and accountability. And I certainly hope we get some accountability with the Rotten Reverend. Well, here's a fairly major development. The head of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, General Ali Nasiri, has defected to the West and brought with him strategic documents from inside the regime. He apparently went to a U.S. embassy in a Gulf state, and he is seeking political asylum. Wow. Now, this is a guy you've seen a million times on TV. He was the head of the, pretty much the intelligence side of the Iran's Revolutionary Guard, and so this guy's face you've seen many times on the news. So when I saw his face, I thought, wow, that's the guy, because he's like fairly high level. So that's a fairly interesting thing. I'm sure we'll never know what he's got, documents wise, or what information he has, but he certainly would be a very, very high-level insider. He knows a lot of things, and I'm sure this will turn out to be very, very valuable intelligence. And this guy will definitely be in the witness protection program. I can assure you that. And, of course, Trump came out today and said that he is fighting all subpoenas from Congress, and he will go all the way to the Supreme Court. And he's going to win. You're not allowed to use the Congress and congressional committees to go on witch hunts. There is no predicate crime. There's no reason for them to dig into his tax records, to dig into his business associates, or any of these things. It's just a witch hunt. It's just a political stunt. It's a clown show. And when it makes it to the Supreme Court, and that will take quite a while, but by the time it does, Jerry Nadler will lose. Elijah Cummings will lose. They will lose both their cases in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court's not going to rule against the president, certainly not this court. So Trump's doing the right thing here. He's not going to cooperate at all, and this will drag on and drag on. And by the time that these things even make it to the Supreme Court to be argued, by then the entire Spygate story will have been completely unearthed, and none of this will matter. It'll be over and done with. The Democrats will have just been hit by an F5 tornado or something. It's not going to matter by the time this case makes it to the Supreme Court. And I think Trump knows that. It's just a delay tactic, just to give him time to get the truth out. And 6 months from now, the whole thing's going to be blown up, and nothing that the Democrats are talking about now is going to matter. It's going to be over for them for a very long time. Giuliani, of course, was on Fox, and he said, keep your eye on Ukraine. He says that's where a lot of dirty work was done. Yes, indeed. He also said he has read Papadopoulos' book. And he's absolutely right. Ukraine was the beginning of the Trump-Russia narrative, and that is where it all started, on the Trump-Russia narrative. And as they dig deeper, they'll find that. Hopefully, Barr will allow this Ukrainian prosecutor to come to the U.S. and share what they have and try to work out the details, because there's a lot of other things going on that are directly tied to the Right Reverend Clinton campaign, as well as the Biden stuff. The Hunter Biden stuff as well is also on their agenda to discuss with American attorneys at the DOJ, according to the Ukrainian prosecutor. Of course, more fallout. Bernie saying that the felons should be able to vote. That is so crazy that even the lunatics over at CNN, Chris Cuomo and Don Lemon, even those two idiots, in a segment the other night, were talking about how crazy this is and how crazy it makes the Democrats look. And Bernie is taking a lot of heat from the mainstream, but his fans love it. All his fans are patting him on the back. They're 100% in agreement. But the mainstream of people, and certain elements of the DNC and the corrupt left-wing media, they're not down with this, and they know how bad this is and what a devastating position this would be for any Democrat to take into the general election. They know this is like suicide. Tom Perez has finally popped his head out of the hole, and he says that Republicans will lie, cheat, and steal to win in 2020. No, actually, he's just laid out the Democrats' plan for 2020. They're going to lie, cheat, and steal to try and win in 2020. Of course, I guess he forgets 2016 when the Right Reverend Clinton and the DNC lied and cheated and tried to steal, in fact, did steal the nomination from Bernie in favor of Hillary. That was the lying, cheating, and stealing that went on in 2016 against Bernie. I imagine that will happen again. And they'll certainly do anything lie, cheat, and steal. I mean, they went way beyond that. They created a fake dossier. They used that to get FISA warrants. They enlisted the help of the FBI, the CIA, the entire international intelligence community, foreign governments, and everything else to try to rig the election against Trump. They failed, and then they used it to try to go for a coup, and that's failed. So Tom Perez is insane. He's nuts. And again, in about 6 months, none of this stuff is going to matter. None of this stuff's going to matter. Next, well, we have Cher, who's taking a beating because, of course, the comment she made last week about, the immigration and about sending all those illegals to Los Angeles when they can't take care of the ones they have now. And then she comes out and tweets out how crazy it is for crazy Bernie, commie Bernie, to talk about letting felons vote. And so Cher has taken a beating from the left. And she's not very happy about it, so she's been red-pilled twice. And I'm kind of wondering, do you think it's possible that maybe a few months from now, especially when the truth comes out about what really happened in the 2016 election, do you think that Cher could actually become a Trump supporter? Wouldn't that be hilarious to watch Cher flip and get totally red-pilled and become a hardcore Trump supporter? So here is her latest tweet after being attacked viciously on Twitter for pointing out what a nut Bernie Sanders is. So she tweets out, "Jesus, terrorists killed innocent people. I'm sick of being nailed to the cross because you people think I'm a racist. I'm not going to defend myself. I care for all people. Try to help all people. Excuse the fuck out of me if I don't want murderers, rapists, and child molesters of every color to vote." Guess what? Cher's been watching Fox News. She's been watching Fox, and she's been watching Sean Hannity. You know why I know? Because that is exactly Sean Hannity pat line that he uses over and over and over and over again. Murderers, rapists, and child molesters. Exactly like that. Hannity repeats that over and over and over again. You've all heard it many times. So now we have Cher echoing Sean Hannity. I wonder if Cher is one of those people that turned off CNN and flipped over to Fox. You think Cher is being red-pilled? Remember, her husband Sonny was a conservative. Maybe he planted a few seeds. Okay. Well, everyone's trying to figure out what happened to crazy Joe Biden. Today was supposed to be the day, Wednesday, that he was going to do his announcement that he was running for president, even though he announced that he was announcing a week ago, which wasn't real good. Of course, we're not really sure why, but if you listen to a lot of the Democratic pundits and people like that, they're familiar with people inside the Democratic Party, they're talking about the fact that his entire little campaign here is a train wreck. It is all discombobulated, disorganized. They don't know what they're doing. They can't figure anything out. And apparently they were going to try to go down to Charleston. That was going to be initially what he was going to do, go down to Charleston and then to Pennsylvania or something. And he was going to use that Charleston event and try to play the race card on Trump and the white supremacist thing and all that. And apparently that got shut down because of left-wing activists didn't want him using that as a way to launch his campaign and thought it was pretty cheesy. But there's a lot of problems going on, and again, a lot of people say they're not even sure if Biden thinks he wants to throw his hat in the ring. I mean, when you look, the guy is white, he's old, he's, part of the establishment. His voting record over the years, he's a centrist. He's the rotten Reverend Clinton without the poop-stained Chairman Mao pantsuit. Although that could probably be rectified with a can of refried beans and some X-Lax. But other than that, Uncle Joe doesn't have a lot going on his record that would get him mass appeal to the far left of the Democratic Party of today. Biden belongs to the Democratic Party of 1990, not the Democratic Party of 2019 or 2020. So I think he's probably never really been 100% sure. But what's even more extraordinary, if this is true, it's being reported that he has not raised a single dollar. He's raised $0. Which means that he would need to raise $100,000 per day, every day until Christmas, just to match what Bernie already has. And a lot of people are just looking at it and saying, man, there's no big donors coming to say, hey, jump in, Joe, we got $1 million check ready to write right now. There's no one coming to him with a lot of money, and it's making him very nervous. And I imagine he's afraid of embarrassment. And he's probably trying to feel this thing out and go, wait a minute. If I throw my hat in the ring and all of a sudden I don't get a bump, in fact, maybe I drop, I start getting questioned on all these issues. I've got this other thing going on with me, hugging and kissing people and all this kind of stuff. That don't look good on the Me Too thing. Nobody's coming to him for all this money. I think he's terrified that he's going to jump out there and just get completely embarrassed. Why does he need to do that? He doesn't. He's rich. He's old. He doesn't need any of this, and he's not going to win. Bottom line. The rotten Reverend Clinton wants to see Joe go in there and take the flak and damage Bernie and hit Bernie. And then after he's completely exhausted himself and he's been beat to death and he's injured Bernie as much as he can and taken out a few of the other people like Kamala Harris and Warren and a few other people, shrunk the field, then Hillary wants to roll in at the end of the day and then cut Biden, cut his legs out from underneath him once he's done the dirty work and the hard work and the heavy lifting, so that she can swoop in September, October, and have a more direct challenge to Bernie. In which case, she'll do what she did last time: cheat him. And of course, Rudy Giuliani is out there encouraging the rotten Reverend Clinton to run in 2020, and I 100% agree. And we have another Arkansas Democrat, another Arkansas Demo commie, who has been arrested for distributing child porn. And he was a friend and associate of the Clintons. His name is Harold Moody. He was the Arkansas Government Youth Program Coordinator. He worked on the Rotten Reverend Clinton fundraisers, and there are photos of Moody posing with the Rotten Reverend Clinton. So there you go, another Clinton associate found guilty of or charged with sex crimes involving children. That's a sick group of people, man. Need to get to the bottom of that. So anyway, it looks like we're just about out of time. So we'll be back tomorrow with more TowerGate. Thank you so much for tuning in. You guys have a good night. I'll be back on Friday. See you. Bye.